Hey guys, this is Tommy from the Godzilla Gaming Network, and you are listening to the GGN Blogcast. This episode is brought to you by the Gear Network and their Amazon page, which you can visit by heading on over to shopgear.com. That's shopgere.com. This episode is also brought to you by IndieCard Media, your one-stop shop for all your graphic design and branding needs. Check out their portfolio of previous work and message the page to begin on your own piece of art. That's IndieCard Media, facebook.com/IndieCardMedia. And lastly, this episode is brought to you by GGN Merch, the only place where you can purchase Godzilla Gaming Network swag such as t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers, and more. Visit the shop over at tpublic.com/stores/GGN-merch. Alright guys, this past weekend I was in Atlanta for the Southern Fried Game Room Expo for 2 nights. And some of you may know, I'm a professional wrestler as well as a gamer. And my tag team partner, as well as my fiance, were part of Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment's Bobby and Stan Most Excellent Tag Team Tournament, which unfortunately we didn't win, only making it to the semifinals. Boo. But in between shows, we explored the venue, which was jam-packed with pinball machines, arcade machines that had like favorites like Mortal Kombat and Soul Calibur, and like there were walls and tables set up with all these kinds of indie developers, whether it be like board games or indie video games that are trying to get off the ground. It was a really fun time. My highlight personally was being able to talk with Ben Heck, who a lot of you may know. I've reported on him before on the site. Ben Heck is one of the founding members of Element 14, which is a website dedicated to technology and, things of that sort. And being able to sit down and talk with him, or I guess stand up and talk with him, was honestly the highlight of that entire weekend for me, because I've watched Ben Heck since I was around 15 years old or so, and it's amazing. They always tell you not to meet your heroes, but for me, he was everything I could have hoped for and more. So that was my personal highlight. It was such a fun time. But just a few days later, the big one arrived. And if you know what I mean, if you're hip to the game world, you know exactly what I mean. E3, the Electronics Entertainment Expo. And well, we're going to get right into that news. Alright, we're going to start off with Microsoft. Now, Microsoft announced that the upcoming Project Scorpio console has an official name, the Xbox One X, which is to be released on November 7th of this year at a price point of $499 in the US. The One X is the company's smallest console to date, and looks-wise, it resembles a black version of the popular Xbox One S. However, with numerous upgrades internally, such as 6 teraflops of performance and the capability of delivering graphics in 4K resolution, Microsoft has promised that it will be the most powerful console ever made. The One X will also play all current and future Xbox One games and work with the controllers you already own. Also at Microsoft's E3 presser, we saw BioWare's new sci-fi IP Anthem. Ubisoft gave the first look at the latest installment of the Assassin's Creed franchise Origins. Crackdown 3 was announced to be making its way to the console. And of course we saw Forza 7, which will run at a native 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. And probably one of the most important parts of this was cross-play being announced between the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch for Minecraft. Blows my mind. Why can't more game companies... Moreover, why can't Sony get their act together? And speaking of Sony, Sony's major selling points this year was its massive game catalog. Tons of announcements and trailers for games, including God of War, Days Gone, and Detroit Become Human, as well as talking about the upcoming releases of Monster Hunter World and a remake of Shadow of the Colossus. Great selling points. Call of Duty World War II was a showcase piece, unsurprisingly, as all content for the game drops first on PS4 before coming to Xbox One and PC after a set period of time. Now, this has been the case with a lot of games recently where PlayStation, Sony will get exclusivity rights to have content drop first before it being able to be released onto other peripherals, and I can't say it hurts the game so much, or it hurts the buyers of the game on other consoles, because a game sale is a game sale. But it definitely seems unfair, but that's the way the business works. A new cinematic trailer for Destiny 2 was shown, focusing on the story aspect of the game as well as the PS4 exclusive content. The trailer for a Spider-Man game set in 2018 showed off Miles Morales, who, if you didn't know, is the Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, the standalone spin-off, got a new trailer reveal, and Sony's big winner, in my opinion, is the announcement of Elder Scrolls V Skyrim VR Edition, exclusive to the PS4. Hold on to your helmet, Dragonborn. And now, Nintendo. 3 words sums up Nintendo's E3 for me. Super Mario Odyssey. There's finally a release date for the sandbox entry of the Mario franchise. October 27, 2017 is when this exciting and innovative installment hits shelves for the Nintendo Switch. Rocket League will also be headed to the Switch, featuring exclusive content and cross-network play. However, supported platforms haven't been confirmed. Speculation is, though, however, that Microsoft's Xbox One will be the first announced, thanks to the Minecraft collaboration that I talked about earlier. A sequel to the absolutely amazing JRPG Xenoblade Chronicles, entitled Xenoblade Chronicles 2, was announced with a holiday 2017 release date. A new Switch-exclusive Pokemon game was teased, as well as new DLC for Zelda Breath of the Wild and the announcement of Metroid Prime 4 for the Nintendo Switch. Now, honestly, if you ask me, I have to give the overall winner of E3 to Nintendo, with Microsoft coming in a close second. The amount of quality titles coming out of the press conference was just outstanding, with a lot of titles for this year, giving it the edge, while Microsoft and Sony featured games for next year. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my Xbox One, but Microsoft's press conference was okay. But E3 made me a firm believer of Nintendo, moreover the Nintendo Switch once again, and I think they finally got it right for the first time in a while as far as the console market goes. Let's get into some game stuff. So, I finally got my hands on IllFonic and Gun Media's Friday the 13th, the game, which was released on May 26th, and I must say, I was not disappointed. The game is a semi-open world third-person survival horror set around Camp Crystal Lake of the movie's lore. You can jump into a match with up to 8 players, with one controlling the hockey mask-wearing, machete-wielding Jason Voorhees, and the others controlling camp counselors, fighting for survival in a truly anxiety-triggering scenario. Jason's abilities and toughness make the game fun and unpredictable. The game, however, is multiplayer only. However, a single-player mode is set to be added during the update this summer. With Harry Manfredini, the original film soundtrack composer, signing on to do the sound for the game, it truly makes you feel like you're smack dab in the middle of the 80s slasher. But with every up, there is a down, and this game is chock full of issues. With examples such as subpar collision detection, a lack of map options, and inconsistent frame rates, along with numerous server issues that left some unable to even play. These issues need to be addressed before it can be called perfect. For what it is, though, Friday the 13th, the game was solid. It was exactly what it needed to be, and I look forward to seeing how the developers and the community will work together to make a better game. I also recently played the demo for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and it was drastically different from the series' last entry, which was Marvel vs. Capcom 3. The character movements were slower than previously, and it feels like the gameplay mechanics were overhauled completely for the sake of accessibility. Also gone are the 3v3 aspect, cutting down to 2-on-2, and the assist moves. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're a new player. However, I find it difficult to believe that a longtime stalwart would just accept these changes without resistance. A newer, realistic art styling over the comic book feel of old is a major change in the graphics department. And the game is so colorful and bright, and in the 15 or so minutes I had to play with it, I was honestly blown away with how sharp everything looked. It's different. I like it. And I'm looking forward to the full release on September 19th. And a little bit of pop culture news. Co-founder of Smosh, Anthony Padilla, has left the company to chase his own artistic goals. He cited a lack of creative freedom as his main reasoning for the departure. Myself personally, as a longtime subscriber to the Smosh YouTube channel for almost 8 years, I'm slightly heartbroken but wish Anthony the best in whatever he creates down the line. Anthony has his own YouTube channel, which you can find at Anthony Padilla, where he posts his own original content. And sadly, this past weekend we lost a beloved figure in the entertainment world in Adam West. Whether you knew him as Batman or as the mayor of Quahog and Family Guy, West was a shining star in entertainment, and he'll be missed. Alright guys, well this wraps up this episode of GGN Blogcast. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time.